Welcome to the Exposure Magazine podcast from the heart of the British nuclear test survivor community.
Hello. Today we're diving into a remarkable account featured in the spring 2025 edition of Exposure Magazine. It's the captivating tale of Terry Banbridge, known as Teflon Tel, who served at Maralinga. His story offers a unique glimpse into a hidden chapter of British history and the sacrifices made by our nuclear test veterans. Terry's journey begins during his national service, attached to the balloon unit at Cardington, where he worked as a motor engineer. Showing an early entrepreneurial spirit, he quickly spotted a business opportunity. With hundreds of men passing through Cardington weekly, receiving all their kit, Terry realised there was a demand for items like boot polish, brushes, dusters, condoms and electric kettles. His business grew so rapidly that he even had to ask his warrant officer for storage space in the empty stores. This obliging warrant officer, an ex-Lancaster rear gunner and reportedly the camp bookmaker, even enlisted Terry to take bets and sell rabbits he had shot. Terry sold the rabbits, which were handy because his electric kettles, plugged into light sockets, were a good way to boil the meat. This flexible arrangement meant Terry often had weekends off to visit home. Then, one day, the warrant officer mentioned a need for a detachment at Aldermaston, a very secret place at the time. To the warrant officer's surprise, Terry volunteered for this mysterious detachment. When their team arrived at Aldermaston, they were tasked with hoisting a great big Toblerone-shaped object under a balloon. While having lunch with scientists, Terry learned that this device was destined to be detonated in Australia. Having lived his whole life in Walthamstow and never travelled further than Blackpool, where they spoke a different language, the prospect seemed incredibly exciting. Upon his return to camp, Terry explained his desire to go on this mission. Although his name was put forward, it was initially rejected because they wanted a regular serviceman. Determined, Terry asked his warrant officer to write back, stating that Terry was the only man he could recommend for the task. In a mutually beneficial agreement, the warrant officer offered to take over Terry's burgeoning business if he was accepted. And sure enough, Terry was selected to go to Australia. Their journey was unusual from the start. They were informed they would travel via America on civilian airlines and had to wear civilian clothes. Terry recounts leaving for America late on a Sunday evening after dancing at the Lyceum Ballroom in London, amusing his friends who couldn't believe he was flying to New York, as tourist travel to America was unheard of back then. They even agreed that if Terry didn't get on the plane, he'd have to pay for the taxi to Heathrow. On the plane, he believed Cyril Stapleton, the famous band leader, was also a passenger. Upon arrival in America, they had a tour of New York, staying one night before flying to San Francisco. They were taken to a large camp called Moffett Field. Their mission was top secret, and they were briefed that if asked what they were doing, they should say they were preparing for the Queen's visit to America, which was imminent. This led to a humorous yet problematic situation for Terry. While walking in San Francisco, people would hear his accent and ask about his purpose. Following his briefing, he would respond he was preparing for the Queen's visit. People would then ask if he could arrange for them to meet the Queen, which he agreed to try. This led to invitations to their homes, huge mansions with swimming pools, and Terry even ended up staying overnight. The next day, while walking through San Francisco, the police showed up, taking him back to camp where he was charged with desertion. Fortunately, it was decided it would be too much trouble to replace him, and he was allowed to continue with the mission. Eventually, they boarded a Lockheed Constellation for Adelaide, stopping in Hawaii due to engine issues, and then Canton Islands for refueling. In Hawaii, staying at a 5-star hotel with little money for drinks, Terry recounts how a kind lady arranged for him to get complimentary drinks by simply giving his room number to the barman. His team thought he'd be arrested, unaware of the arrangement. Upon arriving in Adelaide, then a sombre town of churches, they were flown to Maralinga, the nuclear test site. Terry and his team collected their equipment, including winches, gas trailers, the balloon, and 6 chassis cab trucks. They were told to drive all their equipment to a remote spot in the bush where a tented camp was set up, and not to return to Maralinga village. Their nearest civilization was the runway with Vulcan aircraft, which they could hear and see taking off. With a lot of free time, Terry decided the chassis cabs would be ideal for stock car racing, so they built a track in the bush. He also went gold prospecting and found a pipeline supplying fresh water from Adelaide, leading to enjoyable swims in large storage tanks. Other adventures included trying to catch a baby kangaroo with near-fatal results and discovering the skeleton of a prospector in a well. Life in the tents was dangerous. Terry recalls waking up one morning after a whirlwind had taken all their tents away while they were asleep. After retrieving and re-erecting them, he lifted his tent's duckboards and found about 50 scorpions living there. They were instructed to throw their top blanket off immediately upon waking and bang their boots upside down to remove scorpions. They even had pet scorpions and would gamble on them fighting to the death in a small ring of fire. Terry also describes seeing dingoes in the bush. While looking healthy on one side, the other side of their bodies had flesh burnt away, revealing the skeleton, which Terry attributes to radiation. Finally, the day of the detonation arrived. Terry and his colleague, Corporal O'Brien, an electrician, were left alone with the device. Terry's job was to ensure the truck and equipment worked, while Corporal O'Brien connected the device to a cable running back to Maralinga village. They were instructed to jump in the truck and drive like hell as fast as we could along the track back towards Maralinga village. 2 minutes before detonation, they were told to jump out and bury themselves in the sand, which they thankfully did. They were only about 10-12 miles away from the detonation, and Terry maintains to this day that no one has been nearer an atomic explosion than Corporal O'Brien and myself and lived. He believes burying themselves in the sand saved their lives, describing the heat as colossal. After returning to camp, Terry was put under a shower for 36 hours, with someone checking his radiation level every 30 minutes. After he was cleared, the team was ordered back to the detonation site a couple of days later. Issued with radiation suits, they were told if they needed to go to the toilet, they would have to do it in their trousers. The reason given for their return was to report on the damage to materials arranged around the detonation area, but Terry notes they didn't see much. Again, he believes they were heavily radiated and he had to shower for another 36 hours. Terry states that his family's research has since revealed that they were used as human guinea pigs, same as those on the Christmas Islands. Terry believes he is still healthy despite the radiation because 2 minuses make a plus. He has direct evidence of his exposure. Years later, the Air Force contacted him, asking to use his radiation record as evidence in Australia's case against England, which Terry believed concerned the atomic cloud that blew over Adelaide. Months later, he received a letter from the Australian High Commissioner thanking him for his evidence. However, to this day, the Royal Air Force denies any knowledge of this or of his medical records from his arrival to departure from Australia. Terry has repeatedly tried to obtain this information and involve members of Parliament, including David Cameron, to ascertain his radiation levels, but everyone has an excuse not to help. He notes this is similar for every other person who served at Maralinga. Terry concludes his account by saying good luck to those still fighting for compensation, comparing it to another post office scandal. But this time, it's the government we are fighting, not deceitful directors. Terry's story, along with other insightful features, is included in the Spring 2025 edition of Exposure magazine. You can delve deeper into this and other compelling narratives by visiting the magazine's website. The next issue's copy deadline for all editorial sections is August 15th, 2025. Thank you for joining us on the Exposure magazine podcast. We hope this retelling of Teflon Tel's incredible experiences has shed light on the enduring legacy of the British nuclear tests.
Thank you for joining us today as we bring Exposure magazine to life. Like, subscribe and share for more great podcasts.